Welcome to Life Stories. What would you do if a 9-year-old kid in duct-taped boots told you he could heal your paralyzed daughter? And he was right. This isn't a story about miracles. It's about belief when there's no reason left to believe. About a broken boy who walked out of nowhere and offered something no doctor could. Hope that hurts and heals. Today, you'll meet a man who had everything except peace. A girl who lost everything but never stopped hoping. And a child no one saw coming, whose quiet strength will shake everything you thought you knew about healing, love, and who really saves who. Stay with us, because by the time you reach the end of this story, something inside you might just start to stand again too. Now, let's begin. It was colder than usual that Saturday in Atlanta. Not cold enough to snow, but just enough to make the city feel like it was holding its breath. Breath steamed in the air. Fingers clutched coffee cups like lifelines. People bustled in and out of the Children's Hospital on Peachtree Avenue with the urgency of those desperate to escape whatever had dragged them there. But one person wasn't moving. He sat alone near the revolving doors, perched on a flattened cardboard box like it belonged to him. 9 years old, maybe 10. His coat was 2 sizes too big. One boot was torn at the toe and held together with duct tape. His name was Micah Brooks, though no one really knew that yet. He wasn't panhandling, he wasn't crying, he was drawing. Slow, careful lines in a weather-beaten sketchbook, his pencil scratching softly through the noise of the city. Most people passed by without a second glance. Except Daniel Carter. Daniel looked like every tired father in the world, except sharper. He wore a tailored coat that had seen better days, and held the weight of 1,000 sleepless nights in his posture. His SUV, a gleaming black Lexus, sat parked illegally near a fire hydrant, engine running. In the back seat was Sophie, his 6-year-old daughter, her small body tucked into a booster seat, swaddled in a blanket that didn't quite hide the truth. She hadn't walked in nearly 8 months. Since the accident, she was quiet now, always quiet, her big hazel eyes scanning everything but never settling. Daniel didn't look at her as he lifted her from the car, he just did it like muscle memory. She weighed too little for her age. It made the process feel more fragile, more terrifying. As they moved toward the hospital entrance, Micah looked up. "Sir," the boy said, standing without hesitation, "I can help her walk again." Daniel froze mid-step. Not because the words were strange, but because of the way they were said. Calm, certain. Not like a child pretending to be brave, but like someone telling the time. Daniel turned, his jaw tight. "What did you just say?" Micah didn't flinch. He tucked the sketchbook under his arm, his voice steady. "I can help her." "You think this is funny?" Daniel snapped, instinctively shielding Sophie against his chest. "She's been through hell." "I'm not joking," Micah said. "I don't need to know her to help her." Daniel looked at the boy's clothes, the cracked glasses tucked into his shirt, the duct-taped boot. What kind of scam was this? What kind of broken child thought he could play savior? He turned and walked inside without another word. But something about that voice, it clung to him. All through the day, as doctors repeated the same tired phrases. Slow progress, no guarantees, adjust expectations. The boy's words echoed louder than any diagnosis. "I can help her." When Daniel and Sophie exited the hospital that afternoon, Micah was still there, still drawing, still watching. And when their eyes met again, Daniel didn't walk past, he walked straight to him. "You again," he muttered, trying not to sound curious. "What's your angle?" Micah stood. "No angle. You're a kid." "I know. Then how the hell do you think you can do what trained doctors can't?" Micah looked down at his feet, at the duct tape peeling off his boot. "Because I watched my mom do it. She was a physical therapist, worked with people nobody believed in anymore. She didn't need machines. She used her hands. And faith." Daniel wanted to scoff, but instead he just stood there, watching this tiny, quiet boy speak about healing like it was a memory, not a miracle. And behind him, Sophie peeked around her father's arm, watching too. "Give me 1 hour," Micah said. "That's all I ask." Daniel hesitated. His jaw twitched. He looked down at Sophie, who for the first time in weeks seemed curious about something. He sighed. "Harrington Park. Tomorrow, noon, if you're lying." "I'm not." Daniel walked away again, but this time his shoulders weren't as square. This time he checked the rearview mirror. Micah hadn't moved. The next day, Harrington Park was nearly empty. Cold wind rustled the trees. Micah was already there, waiting on the grass beneath a dying oak tree. He had a towel laid out, a small gym bag beside him, and that same unwavering expression. Daniel pulled up at 12:07. He helped Sophie into her wheelchair and wheeled her over without a word. He didn't know why he'd come. Maybe because nothing else had worked. Maybe because a child who had nothing had spoken with more certainty than any expert in a lab coat. Micah greeted them quietly, offering Sophie a warm rice pack wrapped in cloth. She blinked in surprise. "It smells like cinnamon," she whispered. "It helps the muscles remember," Micah said. He worked gently, asking her if she liked cartoons, what her favorite snack was, if she liked to read. She answered more than Daniel expected. Her voice didn't shake. Her hands stayed calm. Micah rubbed her legs with cocoa butter. He rotated her ankles, pressed lightly behind her knees, and asked again and again, "Can you feel this?" "No." "That's okay, I'll keep asking." Minutes passed, and then Sophie flinched. Daniel leaned in. "What was that?" I felt pressure, a little, like a balloon pressing in." Micah smiled. "That's good." Daniel wanted to say something, but he couldn't. Daniel Carter didn't believe in miracles. Not anymore. He believed in specialists, in research papers, in insurance claims, in tests with results and charts that mapped the impossible climb of recovery. He'd spent months watching doctors avoid eye contact while they talked about nerve trauma and permanent mobility loss. Belief had died quietly, like a candle that didn't flicker out, just faded. But now, it was flickering again. And that terrified him. Sophie had felt something, a sensation in her thigh like pressure. And Micah had acted like that was everything. Like that meant the whole map had changed. The boy had no degree, no clinic, no address. But his hands had moved with precision, and his voice never once wavered. On the way home, Sophie couldn't stop talking. About how warm the rice pack had been. About how Micah asked better questions than any of her doctors. About how it didn't hurt. Daniel said little. That night, after Sophie had fallen asleep, he sat alone in his kitchen, hands wrapped around a cold coffee mug he'd reheated twice and still hadn't drunk. Micah's face kept appearing in his thoughts. Calm. Too calm for a kid who probably didn't know where he was sleeping that night. He stood abruptly, walked into his office, and opened his laptop. Micah Brooks. Nothing. Micah Physical Therapy Child Atlanta. Nothing useful. Then he tried Monica Brooks, Physical Therapist Atlanta. A result, a small community clinic in East Point, a 5-year-old obituary. Monica had died of complications from an untreated infection. No mention of family. Daniel sat back. This kid really had nothing, and yet he gave Sophie something no one else had. The next Sunday they returned to Westview Park. This time, Daniel brought an extra towel, a water bottle, and a granola bar he didn't mention. Micah arrived early again, same duct-taped boots, same quiet confidence. Sophie beamed the moment she saw him. They worked through the same routine. Heat, pressure, movement. This time, Micah introduced something new, a belt loop behind Sophie's knees, Daniel holding each end like reins. "She's going to try lifting her knees," Micah said calmly. "Just a little. We help balance. She controls the motion." Daniel watched Micah closely, gauging every move, every instruction. It wasn't just competence, it was instinct. Like the boy wasn't remembering something he'd learned, but something he'd lived. Sophie grunted softly, her brow furrowed. Then, slowly, her knees lifted, barely an inch. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. "You did that," he whispered. "I did it," Sophie said, her voice small but certain. But the miracle was a double-edged blade. Because later that night, when Daniel called a specialist friend in private and described the technique Micah had used, the response was sharp. "You let a street kid manipulate her spine? Daniel, she could have been hurt." He hung up the phone slowly, his gut twisted. Had he endangered her? But the look on Sophie's face after that session haunted him, in the best way. She had glowed. And that glow was real. It hadn't come from a clinic or a machine. It came from believing she might not be broken. So he said nothing. By week 4, they were in a rhythm. Sophie's ankles were moving slightly. Her knees responded better. Micah had started teaching Daniel how to massage pressure points. Sometimes Daniel forgot to be skeptical. Until the day everything cracked. It was a Sunday morning, and when the SUV pulled up to the park, Sophie wasn't smiling. She had tears on her cheeks. "She doesn't want to try today," Daniel said sharply as he unbuckled her. "She says it's not working." Micah paused, then walked forward gently. "Hey, Sophie." She turned her head away. "I tried this morning," she mumbled, "and nothing moved. Not even my toes. I'm tired of trying. I don't want to pretend anymore." Daniel looked away, his jaw clenched. He hated seeing her like this. Hated that he had let himself believe again. Micah knelt slowly in front of her. "You think I never got tired?" he asked softly. "You think I didn't cry when my mom died and I had to sleep under a bridge with her coat and nothing else? I was mad, Sophie, still am. But I didn't stop, because if I stop, all the people I could help stop with me." She glanced at him, eyes glistening. "But what if I can't walk?" Micah leaned in closer. "Then I'll still be here, every Sunday, every stretch, every inch you move, even when you don't think you are." Silence. Then she whispered, "I'm scared." "So am I," he said, "but being scared just means we're close to something important." They worked that day, slowly, less talking, more breathing, and near the end when they weren't expecting it, Sophie moved her right foot, not a toe. Her foot. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her, stunned. "Do that again," he said, hoarse. She did. No one cheered, no one spoke. It was too holy a moment. But as they packed up to leave, Daniel finally turned to Micah. "Where do you go after this?" he asked quietly. Micah shrugged. "Around." "You got a place to sleep?" A pause. "Sometimes," Daniel swallowed. "You ever think about staying with us, just for a while? Guest room's empty." Micah looked at him, eyes wide. "You serious?" Daniel gave a dry laugh. "After what you've done for my daughter? Yeah, I'm serious." Micah didn't answer right away. But the next morning, he was there, at the front steps of the Carter home, backpack slung over one shoulder, a rolled-up blanket in his arms. Daniel opened the door, coffee in hand, heart pounding for reasons he couldn't name. "You're right on time," he said. Sophie ran to the hallway, her curls bouncing. "Micah," she called out, beaming. He smiled softly. "Hey, superstar." What would you have done in Daniel's place? Risk it all on a stranger, or stick to the safety of science? And if a broken child walked into your life offering healing, would you let him stay? The next chapter begins with a letter, one Micah never meant anyone to read. The days in the Carter household settled into a rhythm, gentle, unspoken, sacred. Micah had his own room now. It wasn't big, but it had a real bed, clean sheets, and a small desk where he kept a sketchbook and the old gym bag that never left his side. He didn't ask for much. He never did. He woke up early, made his bed with the care of someone who knew what it meant to sleep on the floor, and joined Sophie for her morning stretches without fail. Daniel watched the boy from a distance, unsure when he'd started thinking of Micah not as that kid from the park but as family. The boy was still quiet, still cautious, but when he laughed, which happened more often now, it felt like sunshine cracking through a long gray winter. By the sixth Sunday, the park wasn't just a park anymore. It was a gathering place. First it was one family, then 3, then 7. Kids in braces, kids in wheelchairs. Parents with eyes full of silent hope. And Micah, still in his old jacket, still in his duct-tape boots, became their anchor. He showed them how to stretch, how to breathe through pain, how to listen for what the body was trying to say. He never asked for thanks. He never asked for anything. And Sophie was moving. Not walking yet, but her knees lifted higher. Her feet responded faster, and her laugh had come back so loudly that Daniel found himself stepping outside just to hear it echo through the yard. But on the 9th Sunday, everything changed. It started small. Micah was quieter than usual that morning. His hands trembled slightly as he rolled out the towel at Westview Park. When Daniel asked if he was okay, he nodded, but his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Sophie didn't notice. She was too excited. That day, they were going to try standing again. And they did. She stood, shaky, trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. But she stood. And then, like something out of a dream, she took one step, then another. The crowd around the oak tree fell silent. Then someone whispered, "She's walking." She wasn't, not quite, But it was close, closer than any doctor had ever believed possible. Micah backed away slowly, giving her space. Daniel knelt to catch her as she stumbled, tears in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. "You really did it." But Micah didn't celebrate. He simply sat on the bench and opened his sketchbook, his eyes focused but far away. That night, Daniel found a letter on Micah's bed, folded neatly, written in careful, deliberate handwriting. It read, "Mr. Carter, thank you for letting me stay, for giving me a bed, for giving me a chance. I didn't want to leave like this, but sometimes when you've been living with a storm inside you long enough, you feel it coming even when the sky is still. I've been feeling it for a while. I'm not afraid. Not really. I just don't want Sophie to see me when it hits. She's walking. You'll help her fly. That part's done. Now I need to find my mom again. Not in a grave, but in the pieces of her I still carry. That's the only way I'll know how to become more than what she left behind. Please don't look for me, but know I was home here, even if it was just for a little while. Love, Micah." Daniel's hands trembled as he read. He rushed through the house, calling Micah's name, but the boy was gone. His backpack, his jacket, the gym bag, everything. Only the sketchbook remained on the pillow, open to a drawing. It was of the park. Sophie standing beneath the oak tree. Daniel behind her, arms outstretched, and Micah, smiling from the bench, watching from a distance. The police said there was no sign of forced entry, no sign of a struggle, just a kid who'd walked away, quiet as he came. For weeks, Daniel kept searching, shelters, clinics, churches. He even offered a reward. But Micah had vanished like smoke, like a name whispered into wind. And yet he had left more than absence behind, because Sophie kept walking. Her steps grew stronger, her muscles remembered faster. She even started helping other kids at the park, mimicking Micah's movements, repeating his words. "You're not broken," she told one boy in a wheelchair. "You're just learning a different kind of strength." They called them Micah Sundays now. No one ever took his place, but the community grew around the space he had built. Parents teaching each other, kids supporting each other. A movement born not from money or machines, but from the hands of a boy with taped-up boots and a heart too big for his body. And sometimes, when the wind blew just right through the trees at Westview Park, Daniel swore he could still hear Micah's voice, low and steady. The body remembers. You just have to be patient enough to let it talk. 1 year later, on a crisp fall morning, Daniel received a package. No return address. Inside was a new sketchbook, filled cover to cover. Drawings of children, smiling, walking, healing. At the very end, in the corner of the last page, was a single sentence. Still showing up. Daniel placed the sketchbook beside the old one on the shelf, closed his eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Micah was gone, but he had never left. How did this story touch you personally? We'd love to hear what it meant to you. Comment 100 if this story moved you. Tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Share this video with someone who believes in second chances, and thank you for watching Life Stories.